Hey everyone, welcome. It's Meg Cowden of Seed to Fork and the Modern Garden Guild, and welcome to my August garden tour. It's been a month. The garden, of course, looks a lot fuller. Way more things are in season. We're full swing in tomato season now. We're partway through our blueberry season. Our plums will be ripe not long, as well as apples by the end of the month. And I am well into succession planting our fall garden. So I am really looking forward to sharing the garden with you today. So let's talk a little bit about what's in season. So we are still enjoying our first succession of red cabbage. It's always the slowest to mature. It's a much later day cabbage than my tiaras or even my Savoy cabbages. So when I plant those three cabbages together very early in spring, they end up being a really nice staggered planting or staggered maturity, like I talk about in my book, Plant, Grow, Harvest, Repeat. So green beans, we've got our third succession of beans that we are now harvesting. First succession came out and second succession came out as well. Those were planted really around a very similar time frame, about a week apart. And our fourth succession I just planted at the end of July, and it's germinating. Maybe around July 25th. And so that's exciting. That'll be for later in September eating. So those are not going to come into season until like right before the frost. So a fall green bean, if you will. And our sweet corn is now in season, which is very exciting. I sowed that in early May, and I had to actually re-sow it. So I've got three successions of corn, kind of. I've got these first two rows that I planted, only two rows because I ended up having terrible germination, so I transplanted them together into just two rows. That's what I'm harvesting off of right now. Then right next to it, I've got another planting that I sowed about 10 days later. And then about 3 weeks later after that, in June, in one of my very early spring beds, I sowed my third planting of sweet corn that won't come into season into September sometime, kind of like I was just talking with the green beans. So I really try and take these warm season crops and stretch them as far into September as I can. As a way to extend what's in season for us, keep things diverse and interesting. So we're going to eat sweet corn for the first time today. I can't wait. Tomatoes. Tomatoes are also totally in season, except for my determinates, and that is by design. So I've got my indeterminate varieties. Almost all of them are in season. I'm waiting on my Afternoon Delight and my Whitmore, which is like a brandy wine type. But other than that, I think we've harvested all of them. So we've got Sun Golds are going crazy. My Solar Flares are going crazy. Paul Robeson is like pumping the tomatoes out. So is my Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye. Oh, my Berkeley Tie-Dye is not quite in season yet. My Blush looks great. I've got Speckled Romans. Green Giants are just coming into season. It's always kind of tricky to tell with green tomatoes when they're ripe. They kind of I think was my understanding from the couple of years I've grown green tomatoes is they almost turn a little like yellow green and they start softening. So you can kind of see a difference in the texture. Let's talk about pests for a second. We've got a ton of cabbage white butterflies. I catch them with my butterfly net, the kids' butterfly net from when they were younger. And I step on them. And then we also use BT when we need to. Our garden is a little too big for me to spend time to pick eggs off of our plants and caterpillars. I do when I see them, of course, but the way I've planted our brassicas, they are sporadically placed throughout the garden. So the current succession looks okay. The fall succession I have under cover right now to kind of protect them. So until they're a little bit bigger, they can handle a little bit of pest pressure to a point, right? Like maybe like 30% pest pressure. So I am trying to kind of balance the using this biological pesticide, this organic pesticide, Bacillus thuringiensis, and using physical barriers instead to try and just minimize the amount of inputs we need to put into our garden to produce really lovely fall harvests. Cucumbers, we started pickling last weekend. We have an even amount of slicers and pickling cucumbers this year, and that's not usually my intention. I usually go more heavy on the pickling cucumbers. I think I had a little mistake with labeling And so I think I'm going to pull a couple of my slicing cucumbers. It's great to have a ton of them, but we don't need that many. And as you know, like with zucchini, if you miss one, they get really big really fast. And speaking of zucchini, we are down to just our Goldie. I pulled out my earliest succession of my Costata Romanesco that gets massive. It was in like a 4x6 area, and it took the space over within a month. And I now have my fall snap peas germinating there. All 3 rows are up, and those will hopefully produce well for us starting in late September and early October, aligning with the corn and the green beans that I had mentioned earlier. The other thing I have started doing is I've started direct seeding my fall garden. So I've started direct seeding my like storage radishes, so my daikon and my watermelon radish and black Spanish radish and even my turnips. So like 55 day varieties got seeded on August 1st, just a couple of days ago. So that's exciting, even though for us, our climate right now, we have had an extremely dry, extremely hot summer. You know, when I say extremely hot for Minnesota, like when we are consistently 95, that's pretty warm for us. And it looks like August is going to remain a bit warm for us as well, which it can be a little unusual. It usually starts cooling off in August, where we'll have like nights in the 50s. I don't know, it was 70 by 8 o'clock this morning. So we are just plugging along. I am still seeding my fall garden, even though we have these consistently warm days, because not only is it the temperature that fall garden needs, you also need the time. And the daylight is starting to shrink. So those are key factors to getting these crops in the ground and established at the right time. I know come September, it's going to cool off at least a little bit. So what else do we have going on? We've got lots of beans in the garden, dry beans, several types. The cucamelons are going crazy. I've got 3 plants growing on just a straight trellis that I've strung with some twine. So those are out of control. Onions are all bent over and sitting for another couple weeks. Garlic came out about a week and a half ago, so it's curing in our root cellar. And we've got tons of summer beets, tons of summer carrots, and I'm not sure what else. We will have a look around, and if I think of anything else, I will show you. I forgot to mention the peppers. We have got lots of peppers this year. They started out so-so. They're looking pretty good. I know down here somewhere I have got a nearly ripe gourmet bell pepper. We have been eating some Jimmy Nardellos and some Ralph Thompsons, which are these really adorable shaped peppers. I thought they were going to be sweet, but they actually have a little more heat than I was expecting, and that's okay. We're growing a couple of new to us varieties of watermelon this year, and I did lose some because I did not secure them. I have grown them in the past and let them hang, and haven't secured them, but a couple fell already. I think I've got 4 or 5 on these 2 plants. It should have been more like 8. We've also had a banner cucurbit year with our melons. We have no cucumber beetles on our property this summer, and look at this plant. It is just crazy. It looks absolutely beautiful. I haven't, double checked for melons, but I definitely see many that are growing. There's probably lots on the ground in there. We have a ton of grasshoppers as well in terms of pest pressure, and this is grasshopper damage on my eggplants. You can see eggplant is still producing, but definitely a little unsightly. I don't even treat it. I let it go. We've got holes on all kinds of foliage this year, and it's just part of our dry cycle, the increase in grasshopper pressure. This is my bean tunnel that I plant with Borlotti beans. Every year, they're saved seed. I've been growing it since 2019. And right at the end here, there are a few that are starting to turn color, just barely. They should turn a full fuchsia, and then they will eventually dry. So the fuchsia is just starting to come in. So I'm really excited to watch this take shape in the month of August. This is a Flint corn, an old variety of Flint corn, which we're going to try to make tortillas out of, that I picked up from Native Seed Search. And this is in our triangle bed on the east side of the garden. It's one of my favorite views. We planted more potatoes than ever this year. We had quite a few Colorado potato beetles. Got as many as we could in the first generation. We have not, admittedly, been good at looking for adults emerging. I found about a half a dozen about a week and a half ago. Haven't been looking daily just because of the amount of busyness we have. This is one of 3 plantings. We've got another planting down over there and then another one all the way down behind those sunflowers. So here is another one of our triangle beds, and this one is planted. I kind of used it as a formal planting, if you will. So I did 5 stalks of Japonica striped maize corn in the middle, and that corn, if you grow it with a wide enough spacing, it will produce just beautiful, beautiful foliage. So I did this really for the foliage, and beneath it I've got a bush dapple gray bean. This was part of my extra spring brassicas, so I've got a second succession of red cabbage here. And in the very front, I've got a storage red onion, Rasa di Milano. And then, of course, as I plant my entire main path, I like to line the paths with alyssum. I tried to use as much Rosie O'Day as I could. There is some just straight white sweet alyssum in here too. I really hope you enjoyed seeing the garden today, and if you want to go deeper, please consider picking up a copy of my book, Plant, Grow, Harvest, Repeat. It's available everywhere books are sold. And then head to my website, seedtofork.com, and you can get access to a whole resource library of old blog posts, as well as an opportunity to go deeper with me and learn more daily, weekly, and monthly in my Modern Garden Guild. So find out more at seedtofork.com, and thanks for watching.